Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Reviews, with your host, Arlyeon. On today's episode, I'll be talking about a title I snagged in a semi-recent Humble Bundle, namely Tinogames Inc's deck-building roguelike Neoverse. But was this game the one, or was it a universal failure? Boo! Humanity has achieved its zenith, finally forming a utopian society free of strife, and thereby liberating its citizens to pursue the betterment of their lives. This also leaves a whole lot of time for inquisitive minds to devote themselves to things like pushing the boundaries of science, not only discovering that there are in fact multiverses, but also abruptly making themselves the target of interdimensional invasions. That, and leaving the whole of reality at risk of being subjected to unending oblivion. Peachy, right? To be fair, this is admittedly a neat premise, but I really can't give much thought or focus to a story segment which solely exists as scrolling text on the start screen, which is always interrupted by the game's opening cinematic, no less. It actually took me well into my final forays into the game to realize that there was more than a few lines to this intro, given how quickly the cinematic pops in. And there really isn't any other bit of narration in the game even when you clear it. Which is to say, I'm here to primarily judge this game on how it plays. And honestly, as far as deck building roguelikes go, there are some interesting ideas at its core. Sure, there's the familiar elements, like carefully curating a growing deck of cards, balancing out the acquisition of these items based on how much they might glut up your deck versus their utility, or just upgrading and purging things, but it also brings some interesting elements to the table. Neoverse's combo system, for instance, incentivizes using different types of cards in random patterns, providing a double damage bonus so the player can manage it. Whilst it might not make the biggest impact in the early game, it can be devastating with heavy hitting or AoE cards in the late game. There was also the parry system, which rewarded players for blocking attacks with the exact amount of armor needed by stunning the enemy which dealt the blow with a one-round stun. It's an interesting concept, but one I found became increasingly complicated to manage, both in part to the game's ascending difficulty levels and its modifiers, but also due to the optional final boss route you can pursue. See, that one has a rather nasty habit of brutally punishing players for having armor, with one of the options simply stealing the player's turn whenever they have any defense, while another strips them of buffs. In fact, in order to tackle those options, I found myself frequently throwing away defense cards and trying to avoid defense-related talents. Which also might be why Claire was my character choice for those bosses, given her ability to both dish out and heal inordinate amounts of damage. That said, while I can take or leave the parry, the precision system was always welcome, given that it provides players with bonus cash if they deal exactly an enemy's remaining health. Putting all those elements together, and they are pretty neat systems that helped influence overarching strategies on how to progress and profit, especially when put in tandem with the game's mission system. Because for every step of the way, you're actually given a choice between several different fights, the likes of which naturally vary in both their difficulty and rewards. That said, these fights also come with mission modifiers, which task players to do things like take no damage in a given round, combo a certain number of times, play a certain number of cards over the course of a combat, or other likewise elements. Some of these must be done in one turn, some over the course of the battle, and some just simply build up and make progress over time, but they all provide the player with resources to move forward, ranging from items to gold to stat bonus to even permanent buffs. They also help to incentivize my deep dive into the game's accessory system. Now, accessories are a sort of progress you keep between runs, serving as items that you can equip to get some potentially powerful passive bonuses. And there's a fair amount that you can acquire, so long as you farm the trophies needed to purchase them from successful boss kills. That said, I had a rather particular fondness for the ones that gave extra skill points and disabled the parry system and the combo system. Partly because I found the skill points more powerful, and partly because they also prevented you from getting mission objectives that required you to parry or combo. But anyways, my avid dislike of the parries aside, I can at least say the game's got it fairly together when it comes to appearances. Mostly. See, I'm quite fond of the overall design for the characters and enemies, enough so that I even found myself legitimately curious to unlock the alternate costumes for those characters, to see how they'd look. That said, I might have found myself feeling a little bit self-conscious about the final outfits for all the protagonists, since they're, swimsuits. Just blatant fan servicey swimsuits, and no amount of equipable accessories can change that fact, though you're certainly able to compound just how much of a fashion disaster you can be. That grievance aside, I'd also like to take this moment to note that I still find the game's opening video a little bit weird, if only because it served as the game's trailer and had me expecting anything except for what Neoverse actually was. But you know, so it goes. And, you know, also, I guess the soundtrack's decent? Yep. Anyways, that's about all my rambling done, so I'm just gonna sum things up and simply say Neoverse was an alright experience. There's definitely some neat ideas that went into the making of the game, with both a decent array of enemies and bosses to encounter, as well as some distinct characters to tackle them with. That said, while I certainly won't speak too ill of it, I also can't really find myself enthused about it. At the end of the day, it was a visually appealing but fairly average experience. It's for this reason that I placed it as more of a fumble than anything, since I found myself hard-pressed to recommend this unless you're a major fan of deck builders and in a bit of a dry spot. Anywho, thanks for tuning in. If you agree, disagree, or just have something to say to me, feel free to comment. And for those interested in more indie reviews, developer interviews, podcasts, our Monday TTRPG content, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know when there's a new release. There's also a Discord, and you can click the link in the banner or the description so you can be a part of our community, the Crit Hit Cauldron. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel, we do have a coffee running now to help supplement funds for our lovely editor Rand, and to make sure we can continue to provide quality content. Again, check the description and the banner for them links. That said, I'll catch you on the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care till then, folks.